Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another free real estate advice Fridays. Sorry, I was just hooking up my hardwired internet. So today is episode number 59. I wanted to do tales from this crazy market. A lot to be talked about these days. So I have another couple under contract, one on the listing side and a couple on the buying side. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to go through some of these recent things that I've seen in the market. Certainly the things that I'll talk about today. As always, I kind of have to sanitize what I'm going to talk about because I don't want to talk about pending deals necessarily with specifics, and obviously I don't want to talk about my own clients or other agents by name or anything like that. So I'll sanitize it a little bit. However, that being said, there's a, you know, anytime in real estate, there's lessons learned every single week, if not every day, especially in a market like this where things are very frantic and heated and stuff like that. There are a lot of lessons that come out of, almost every day that we go through our jobs, especially as you start getting active with pending deals. There's surprises and challenges every day, hurdles, things that need to be addressed. So I want to talk about some of the things I've learned recently. And like I said, these are things that we talk about here in the office. I've mentioned several times that I host the mastermind every other week here in the office, kind of helping agents discuss, what's going on out there and how we're making changes to our business to deal with the current market and things like that. And a lot of these types of things are the things that we'll discuss. As I always say, if you are an agent, whether it's at another brokerage or you're thinking about being an agent or anything like that, get in touch with me because actually anyone is invited to these masterminds. You actually don't even have to be an agent. We're happy to have you over here and kind of, let you get a little bit of a inside view of the kind of stuff that we do. And a lot of times it just kind of helps you decide if it's something that you want to do. I know that me personally, before I got started in real estate, I think the perception that I had as far as what it would be like was very different than the reality for sure. And I think that over my first, 6 months of being a real estate agent, and I should say like my first 4 months were part-time and then the subsequent 2 months were full-time. Over that 6 months, I learned so much. I said, oh, so this is what real estate's going to be like. It was definitely not necessarily what I thought it would be. And I think that's important for, someone who's thinking about becoming an agent because you may have a perception in your mind and it may be better or worse than the reality. But the point is that I think it's very funny. I actually had this conversation with a client this week and they said, the very popular talking point is, oh, real estate agents don't do anything. They just collect their checks. And if that couldn't be further from the truth, this is definitely not an easy job. I'm not complaining. I love this job, but there are some very high stress things that you have to keep in mind. You do have to work hard. There is no question. You're going to work many hours. It is not, if you're trying to do this at a high level, it is definitely not a 40-hour a week job. And we can talk about some of those things. But, if you're doing this as a business, obviously you have to maintain many clients and you have to keep track of those clients. You're on call all the time, especially in this market where things pop up and you have to act very quickly. So, I think that perception that, real estate agents don't do anything. I can't tell you how hard we have to work to keep deals together these days. It's a lot. So before we get into that, I want to do my weekly plug. Something I've plugged many times, but we have some good stuff going on over there these days. My gym, Ironworks Fitness, which is, I think technically that's Raritan Township, just outside of Flemington, over on Minnekonick Road. We have some new weekend classes that are pop-in classes. You don't have to be a member. You can just pop in. And we also are running some promotions. Actually, I'm going to be running a promotion to give away free membership to Ironworks. And we're always looking for good new members. So if you are in the Hunterdon County area, I live about 15 minutes from there. And it's a no-brainer for me. It's definitely like absolutely changed my life. So if you have any questions, you're looking to join the gym, let me know. Keep an eye out for that promo that I'll be running very soon. We're still kind of ironing out the details, but that is Ironworks Fitness on Minnekonick Road outside Flemington. All right, so let's get into real estate. So a couple things I want to talk about. So I hosted an open house last weekend, and it was a nut house. the listing itself was in Hawthorne, New Jersey, up in Passaic County. As far as listings go, I will cover almost all of New Jersey. As far as buyers go, I don't always travel that far because obviously that's logistically a lot harder. Whereas listing a home is logistically, in terms of having to physically be there all the time, is, very manageable and kind of easy to build into your schedule. Whereas with buyers, obviously, we could take 20 trips to an area before we actually find anything. And obviously that's a lot harder to manage time wise. It's more just a time blocking situation. And what typically happens there on the listing side is we just have agents. I work for Keller Williams. There's Keller Williams agents absolutely everywhere. So what typically happens is I just have a partner agent that I partner up with in that area to help me with any buyers. And that's what I'm doing on this one. I'm working with a great agent up there that is helping me. If anyone that comes to our listing is looking to buy, they work with my KW colleague up there. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the open house because it's quite a window into working with buying agents, me working with buying agents as a listing agent. I'm going to be working with them if we do a deal. Obviously, we're going to be working together. And also the offer process. It's quite crazy. So let's talk about the open house. The open house was on Sunday. We did 1 to 4. I usually do 1 to 3, but in this market, I've been doing 1 to 4 just because there's so many people. We did go past that time. So because the line never stops. So we got everyone through that at some point got in line, and I think we ended up right around 4:30. So 3.5 straight hours of people coming through the house. We had over 100 groups. And when I say groups, most groups are more than one person. I think I only had a few that was literally just one person by themselves. And actually a few of them were agents. So obviously I don't really need to accompany them or anything. But there were only a few people looking to buy a house that were just there by themselves. That's an important point, and I'll tell you why in a second. I actually kind of followed up with those people and said, hey, I know you're probably not making an offer on this house at this point, but I'd highly recommend that you get involved with an agent because, out of the 100+ groups, there were only about 5 that were unrepresented. So, and I gave them a call and just kind of talked over that and educate them a little bit and get them with a great agent up in that area. But let's talk about a few things that I observed. So, when you're picking a buying agent, there's a number of ways to do it. You could do it like, let's say you were buying in Hawthorne. You actually came to my open house. You're a friend of mine, however you're watching this. Obviously, you know me somehow if you're watching this. And you say, hey, you know what? Actually, we're relocating up to that area. So we're actually going to go up there. And again, I don't necessarily work with buyers up in that area, but I have people up there. So you would be one of the people we're talking about here. So you'd have a couple choices. You could just come to me and say, hey, Craig, can you recommend someone up there? And of course I can. I can recommend someone anywhere. And the way that typically works, and we've talked about this before, is a real estate agent referrals are a huge part of our business. And it's something that we take great pride in. It's something that is super helpful to me on the referring end, and it's super helpful to the other agent that's receiving the referral. There's a split that goes on there, obviously. And what I owe to the person who came to me to say, can you refer me to an agent, is that I'm going to call to that area. We have our own internal systems and whatnot to find a great agent up there. If I don't already know someone, which, in most of New Jersey, there's a good chance I already know somebody. Our ownership group actually has offices all over New Jersey. So there's a very good chance that we just already know someone. If I don't know someone, then I'm engaging with the local Keller Williams offices. And what I'm personally looking for is I'm looking for very proactive, very professional, very established and savvy agents, because that is totally what is needed in this market. If you're not a savvy, strategic agent, I'm not going to send my buyers to work with you because you're at a disadvantage. And we'll talk about that in a second. We're going to get into what makes a great buyer's agent. But the advantage to someone who comes to me and says, Craig, hey, I saw you have a listing up in Hawthorne. I know you're not going to help us buy a house up there, but we are looking up there. What can you tell me? So I have an agent up there. I'm going to recommend you to this agent. Why am I recommending you to this agent? Because they've demonstrated some things to me that tells me, number one, is they're going to be a good fit with you. And number two is that they're capable of doing their job in a way that would put you in a favorable position to actually acquire a house, because again, that is not easy these days. And we have a lot of part-time agents. We have a lot of people that are not totally professional and stuff like that. And that's what we're going to talk about. So, all right. So I'm sitting my open house up in Hawthorne, and these days, back about 3 years ago, a big way that we get new business is sitting open houses and meeting people coming in that are looking to buy a house. And we say, hey, are you working with an agent? They say, no, I'm not working with an agent. And you say, hey, I'm an agent and I would love to work with you. That's obviously how we get a lot of our business. In fact, that's probably the number one way for new agents to get business. It's definitely what we recommend to most of the new agents, is like, just go ahead and sit a couple open houses, and then next thing you know, you'll have some clients. So I'm sitting this open house, and now in 2023, you get fewer and fewer people that are coming in unrepresented, basically because everyone's just putting in a lot of offers these days. So, the people that were looking at my house and like seriously considering buying it on Sunday have probably already put in offers, or are very engaged with an agent who's shown them several houses. It's a much more active market on the buying side. So, very few are just like coming in with like no affiliation whatsoever. That being said, there were a few. But what ends up happening is, at the open houses, I end up meeting a lot more agents. Now, my whole policy on this thing is, there's not a great captivating reason to bring your agent or ask your agent to meet you at an open house. My opinion on that is, if you are a client, you walk up to the open house, the first thing you should say is, to the agent that's working the open house is going to say to you, hey, I'm Craig Metz, and this is welcome to the open house. Are you working with an agent? And you would say, yes, I am working with an agent. In this case, it would be, I'm working with Craig Metz. But let's say you have a different agent, Joe Smith. I'm working with Joe Smith at, ABC Realty. That's my agent. And I would say, great. That sounds great. And, you can tell Joe, here's my business card. Let Joe contact me if he has any questions or anything. And then you, as the client, would walk the house and decide if it's something that you like. And if it is something you like, you can pretty much just leave at that point. Or you can come back to me and say, hey, Joe Smith is going to reach out to you. We're definitely interested in putting an offer in the house. And that's fine. Most likely what's going to happen is Joe Smith is going to call me either that night or the next day and say, hey, my clients are going to put in an offer, and I haven't seen the house yet physically. So I'm going to just make a quick appointment to go check out the house. I'll be in and out in 15 minutes, just so he can get an idea. I mean, he's about to write an offer on it. He wants to take a quick look as a realtor and see if there's any concerns, or, just, standard due diligence type stuff. And that's typically how we would do that. And, the reason I say this is, going back to like why you pick an agent. What I'm seeing a lot of these days with buying agents is there's a lot more, the way I've been saying it recently is, there's a lot more bravado than substance. So I've actually seen cases, I've taken these myself, and I push back very hard on it because it's ridiculous. But an agent might say something to me, because I don't typically accompany my clients to open houses unless it's a certain circumstance, like it's a house we've been waiting for a while, and it's very particular and they want to move fast. Then sure, I'll meet them over there. That's not a problem. But I have a family. It's Sunday. If there's not really a captivating reason for me to be there, then I'm not going to be there. It doesn't make any sense. So, I've seen other agents shame other agents, like, oh, you don't accompany your clients to open houses. I don't, because it's unnecessary. And if my client really tells me that they want me there for a specific reason, then yes, I will be there. But most clients will tell you that, or they should say that, it's really not necessary for us to be there for the open house. Again, if they like the house, that's what they're there to discover. Do they like the house? If they like the house, I'll be there the next day. I'll take a look. And I'll call them back and say, hey, I took a look at the house. Looks great. A couple things I did notice. But that being said, let's write an offer. It also helps when we're determining sales price. Like if I've already seen it, then I can, obviously I do a little bit better running comps and stuff like that, and kind of determining our offer price. But do I need to be there at the open house on Sunday? Absolutely not. That being said, on Sunday, this past Sunday, when I did the open house, there were a ton of agents there, and that's fine. I'm not going to shame someone for taking their clients to an open house. That's totally fine. What I am saying is there should be no expectation that, like, that's a requirement, like that your buying agent would accompany you to an open house. That's literally why it's an open house. If you want to book a showing with your agent, that's another story. Like a logical next step from that is, like, let's say my clients like a house at a open house. They call me, they say, hey, we're thinking about making an offer on this house. Very commonly what we'll do is we'll book a second showing. Number one, it gives them an opportunity to take a second look at the house, because a lot of times people are putting offers in on houses they've only seen it once at the open house for like 15 minutes, and then they're putting an offer in. It's so a lot of times we'll say, all right, let's go take another look. This time I'll come with you. So that, the next day, Monday, I go at 4 p.m. with my clients. We go take a look at the house. Now I'm there with them. They are now reinforcing the fact that they like it. It's going to help in their offer that they've seen it twice. The agent, the listing agent, is going to be aware that they've seen it twice. Kind of strengthens the offer, because we know it's not one of the people that were kind of fickle because they're like, I don't know, we saw it for 20 minutes. Now we have to put an offer in. We're not sure. We want to make sure that's a strong offer. So, we go back a second time, we take a look at the house. I give my thoughts on it. Now I've seen it. I can start to write an offer and everything. So that's typically how we would do that. So let's talk about the agents that do come to the open house. So I'm there, I'm the listing agent, right? And someone comes to the door and says, hey, I'm Joe Smith from ABC Realty. These are my clients. And we're going to take a look at the house. Here's my card. Great. Now, you have to be aware of something here. This was a crazy open house, right? There's 100, honestly, the amount of actual people is probably 300 people. Because like I said, it's 100 groups, and almost no groups were one person. They were all at least two. So let's call it 300 people through the open house. Now, am I going to remember Joe Smith? Probably not. I actually, the stack of cards is sitting right here. This is the business cards I took at my open house. This is 32 different realtors I met on Sunday. So am I going to remember Joe Smith? Probably not. Or am I? Because if Joe Smith is smart, he'll make an impression on me, because it's his chance to say to the listing agent, like, hey, I'll be professional during this. I'll be easy to work with. These are my clients. Meet my clients. So you can tell what he's really saying is, can you tell your clients about my clients that they're nice people and they would love this house? And, what impression is he making on me? Let me give you two scenarios. So Joe Smith, in this case, introduces me. Nice guy, seems very knowledgeable about the market. We commiserate a little bit about the crazy open house and the crazy market and all the offers we put in recently, and the stories, because like I said, we have stories every week, new stories. So Joe and I have a few chuckles as two fellow agents kind of navigating this market. And he leaves a good impression with me. I look at his card. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll remember this guy. Like if I go through this stack of 30 cards that I got, if I go through this stack of 30 cards, I can remember probably 3 or 4 of these agents, because they did that, right? It's just a professional, like, networking thing. It's just like, hey, how's this market? Pretty crazy, right? I'll remember those people. Okay. Here's the other type of agent. I had a situation where, we were processing people as fast as we could, but everyone's got to get a good look at the house. It's not the biggest house, so I had to kind of stop people at the door, and I was letting 2 groups in at the same time because there's a bit of a bottleneck in the front of the house. And so I was letting a group go through the front of the house and then continue, and then letting the next group in. And I was telling everyone that at the door. Well, there was one agent that did not like the way I was doing this, because they would see people come out of the back of the house because there was a natural flow, and they would come out of the back of the house and they would leave. This agent saw people coming out of the back of the house, which makes sense. That group was done, but I still had a group upstairs, and that was where the bottleneck occurs. So she sees a group come out of the back of the house, and she says, I saw a group come out. Why aren't you letting us in? And I said, oh, it's actually, that's not what's dictating it. It's when people kind of, finish upstairs and they come down, and then I let the next group up. Well, she didn't like that. So she got pretty confrontational about it. And just in addition to that, just general demeanor, no questions about real estate. Like, I would think she would probably ask some, questions about the house, and there's some very logical questions, even if she's not making an offer, just to get an idea of the situation. I mean, her clients are there to look at this house. They've been waiting in line for an hour. You would think she would have a few questions. But instead she was fixated on the fact that I hadn't, let people in fast enough. And believe me, I was doing my best. I was running through it. 99% of the people that came through were all commiserating together, clients, realtors. Everyone is just kind of laughing at the situation for what it is, because if you don't laugh, you're going to cry about the current situation. Everyone was very nice. Huge crowd, all different types of people, and it was actually very nice. Other than standing for 3.5 hours for me, it was actually a very nice experience. So, like, why does that agent stand out to me now as the listing agent? Because of all the wrong reasons. So I do remember that agent. That agent's card is in that stack, and I was pretty put off by it. And if that offer comes in from that agent, we're already operating from kind of a tough place, because I remember that interaction. And then, like, what we're going to get into here is there's going to be a lot of forks in the road in any transaction, and a lot of times where we have to work together to come up with a conclusion or a resolution to any situation. And not to say that we're working together in a bad way that's going to hurt our clients. We're working together to make everyone happy and make everyone win, and navigating situations that are not necessarily obvious, and situations that do have industry norms, and situations that are unreasonable. And we have to know when certain situations are unreasonable. Do I have confidence that that agent that was, one of the rudest, it is what it is. I mean, it was one of the rudest people I met that day. Do I have confidence that that person's going to be easy to work with? And if the person's not easy to work with, the deal is going to, submarine at that point. And then I have clients that are going to have to pause the process, because we're going to have to get a new deal in place. So it's a huge thing. It's just a professionalism consideration. So are you confident that the person you pick is not going to be that person, but is going to be the Joe Smith we referred to earlier, that, we have a few chuckles, we talk about the market, we ask a couple simple qualifying questions. Give me the card. I remember Joe Smith. Seemed like a great guy, seemed professional, would be happy to work with him. Or are you going to be the one that was confrontational and didn't ask me any pertinent questions and was one of the ruder people I met that day? Like, who do you think, that stuff does get back to the clients, because I have to tell them any sort of, red flags that I have about the process. And if I have a bad feeling about the capability of the other agent, that's certainly a variable. So when these situations pop up, and I'm going to get into another crazy situation that happened at this listing. When these situations pop up, is my thought is always this: does this agent's clients realize what is being put out there on their behalf? These people hired an agent to help them get a house in one of the craziest markets in the history of, the US. And that agent can't get out of their own way and be professional and do basic professional things. Um, I have to guess that a lot of times, a lot of that happens kind of behind the scenes, phone calls between agents, interactions like this, where her clients had kind of walked ahead of her and were already looking at the house. And this interaction was not necessarily observed by them. Do clients realize I have had agents kill deals that did not have to be killed because they made some bad choices? And I can tell you that in most of those cases, maybe they told their clients, but they certainly wouldn't have been definite that their clients would have known that's what happened. So something to always think about. Negotiating is definitely a thing. I think one of the biggest mistakes with less experienced or less savvy agents is that negotiating is supposed to be this like confrontational, terrible thing. Everyone puffing their chest out, two bulldogs barking at each other. That's not the way negotiation should be. It's a professional thing. There's nothing personal about it. There are generally pretty logical paths as to how you arrive at conclusions from negotiating. And certainly there are times when you have to put your foot down. I mean, it happens all the time, and I'm happy to do that. but not like that, and not up front. It doesn't make sense to do it. And when it comes at a time where it doesn't make sense, it's a huge red flag. So it's something to be very aware of. So let's talk about after the open house is over. We took 12 offers on the property. I'm sorry, 11 offers. I don't know why I keep saying 12. I said I keep saying that all week. It was 11 offers. So we take 11 offers on the property. So this is another thing, and this is nothing new to me. I've been preaching this in my office for several years, since I've been kind of helping out, teach agents how to write successful offers. I want to show a comment here. Thanks, Chris. Chris, you're becoming one of my best fans. I appreciate that. Chris is a current client. He says can confirm Craig always makes himself as available as possible, and I appreciate that, Chris. I definitely pride myself on my availability. It's not easy, but it's it's something that I think I'm fairly skilled at. And I try to work hard for my clients, that's for sure. And it's one of the things that I know is very infuriating within the industry, is we have to call agents all the time, and some of them are impossible to get a hold of. Actually, Chris, very well that we went to go look at a house together. I still have not heard from that agent, and now it's I think it's probably under contract. I think it's minimally pending, so at least an attorney review. But we went to go look at this house. I never once heard from the agent, and I had some very specific questions I wanted to go over, and never heard from him. But that happens all the time in our industry. There's a lot of agents that do that. So thanks, Chris, for that. I do appreciate that, and I definitely do strive to be very available and be good at multitasking, but also not ignore my family or my other clients. It's something that I work very hard. And also coach listing agents who are too inexperienced and hurt the flow of the contract. That's part of the job, Chris. That's for sure. That is for sure. And I'm actually going to get into that a little bit. So, but let's talk about the offer process. So we take 11 offers on this listing up in Hawthorne. I want to tell you that, the range of quality in the offers, just in terms of, we're not talking terms here. We're not talking money, and we're not talking financial instrument or anything like that. Just in terms of like delivering the offer. The range is from embarrassing to like slightly less embarrassing. Honestly. So, missing attachments, misnamed attachments, contracts not filled out correctly, missing key forms, missing pre-approvals, missing proof of funds in the case where there's a large cash element to the offer. Most of those offers received without the agent having called me ahead of time, which to me is completely inexcusable. If you're not touching base with the listing agent and saying, what are the goals of your sellers? When would they like to close? Are there any things they'd like to leave behind? We'd be happy to take them out. Like all those things, like what, oh, actually, yeah, the sellers would love to like not have to take the living room furniture. If your clients would be willing to take that, that would be a huge help to us. Great. We'll write it in the offer. No problem. Things like that are a huge advantage. So of course I'm going to sniff around and see what those, potential things are. And I can go back to my clients and say, I had a good friend of mine who bought a house where it was an estate situation, and it was lived in and everything. It was a decent house. We're not talking a hoarder house or anything. Just, they just had their furniture and stuff. And it was a competitive market. This is years ago, but it was still a very competitive market. And the seller said, hey, we're kind of dreading the whole clean out of the house and selling all the personal items and everything. We've kind of taken out the stuff that's valuable and everything, but there's just some stuff. And it wasn't anything crazy. It was just like, it looked like a half cleared out house. And he said, that's fine. We'll take care of it. He's like, he's a young guy, he's fit. And, he would be happy to sort through it. And it gave him a huge advantage because, they knew enough to say, yeah, I could understand that would be huge stress on you. So let us just take care of it. You can leave whatever you want. We'll take care of it. Because he knew there wasn't going to be a ton of stuff. And he's, if they're going to still take some stuff, and whatever's left, he'll just deal with. But that's why you make those calls to the, listing agent, and you say, hey, what are the wishes of your sellers? What are they looking for? Are they looking for a closing date? Do they need another month? Do they want to close super fast? Do they want to close in 3 weeks? Because we can do it either way. But I barely received any calls on these offers. So again, kind of in my opinion, and it's just my opinion as an agent, that's a huge miss. Because I can't tell you how many deals I have delivered only because I got wind of something that was going to be a big factor in the sale. To me, that is just basic due diligence. That is the minimum you should be doing.
So that's kind of the pre-offer process. Now, accordingly, you should also be kind of preparing your clients as well, and going over any things, starting to get an idea of what kind of offer they're going to put in and what concerns that offer would bring. So let's talk about that a little bit. Structure of the offer. Listen, if you're offering 70 grand over asking on a house that's not a huge price point, let's say $400,000, and you're going to offer 70 grand over asking, the first question you're going to get is, how much are they putting down? They're putting down 5%. Okay, that's fine. But if you're going 70 grand over asking, what are you going to do in the case it doesn't appraise? Because there's a very good chance it won't appraise. You better be able to answer that question. Now, listen, the answer might just be, hey, we're going to hope it appraises, because that's what we have. But you have to be upfront with that. You have to let them know, like, that is what it is. And I've had to do that many times. In fact, I would say the majority of the time, that is the answer, because we're giving you everything we have. This is our best offer. I recognize that there would be an appraisal concern. Usually the way I kind of phrase it is, I've done my homework. And when I say I phrase it this way, I do phrase it this way, but it's because I'm telling the truth. We've done our homework on the comps. We're confident in the price, even though we are going over asking. I'm still confident that it'll appraise. And we as agents have experience in terms of like selling price to appraisal price and like what that looks like. For the most part, appraisal price is generally going to be over the asking price. Those, I always kind of tell people, like, the number you see on Zillow for your house, like if you go on Zillow, you look up your own house and it says, that it's got that number, that the value of your house, like, that's typically not what your house is going to sell for. But that would probably be, if anything, you could maybe think that might be the appraisal value. Maybe, again, it's an algorithm, but that number would be closer to an appraisal number than it would be a market number. So, but we have those conversations. So I can't tell you, I had asked this question a lot of times of the offers I received. I said, hey, I noticed you're 70,000 over asking, you're 5% down. And what's the plan as far as appraisal? And they'd be like, oh, what? Not even knowing what exactly I was asking. That's a huge concern. So it tells me that they haven't told their clients how that works. Because if they came back to me and said, hey, look, yeah, we get it. We'll do the best we can, because the answer could be very simple. The answer could be, yes, that's true. She does have money available. If necessary, her mom is going to gift her $40,000 to cover any appraisal gaps. We're hoping it doesn't come to that. Listen, that's a much better answer than a shrug, which is what I get a lot of the time. Again, and then I wonder, like, do the clients realize, like, if you just had a decent offer, and then when we had that conversation, your offer went down like this? Because now I'm like, oh, so you have no plan for the appraisal. Like, there's literally no plan. And that 470 that you're offering is probably no good. So there's that. When you're structuring, this is a popular one right now. So I hate, I shouldn't say I hate, I try not to use that strong of language, but I really never, I've said this many times on this podcast, but I never recommend waiving inspections. That being said, have I written offers waiving inspections? Sure, because I was confident that my clients understood. And I said the same thing to them. Listen, I don't recommend that you waive these inspections, but I will tell you that if you don't, you're probably not going to get the house. But that being said, not only are you going to have to get past me and make me confident that you understand what waiving inspections means, but you're also going to have to get past the final boss, which is your attorney. And you're going to have to look that attorney in the eyes and say, well, probably not in the eyes, probably on the phone, but you're going to have to tell that attorney that you are waiving inspections, and they're going to give you like their opinion. And that's their only job. They're not there to help you win the bid. They're there to help you protect your legal end. So it is like literally the final boss. And if you can get past that, then sure, we'll put in your offer for, waiving inspections. However, if you notice, one thing is, I'm having that conversation with my client before we put in the offer, and I'm asking them to call their attorney before they put in the offer, because I want to be able to tell the listing agent that I'm putting in an offer with waived inspections, and we've run it by the attorney. The attorney's good with it. Because here's what happened in my case. We had about 3 where they waived inspections. I called 3 different agents, say, hey, I noticed you waived inspections on your offer. Can I ask you, did you run this by the buyer's attorney? And I got 3 different answers. I got one was, yes, that's our regular attorney. We've put in other offers doing the same thing, and this attorney is okay with it, and the clients have been coached and they understand it. Great. Thank you so much. That offer, it was here, might have even inched up a little bit, but it certainly didn't go down. The other two I called, and the one was like, yes, we did talk about that with the clients. They have not chosen an attorney yet, so we haven't talked to their attorney. I'm like, all right, well, obviously a lot of attorneys are going to have a problem with that, and they're going to have a very serious talk with their clients, and probably half those clients are going to say, you know what, we weren't thinking about it like that. So yeah, we don't want to do that. But if they're having that conversation in attorney review, it's too late. Like, we already accepted their offer where they said they were going to waive inspections, and now they got to come back to us, which they have a right to, but we don't want to accept their offer if there's a risk of this happening. They're going to come back to us and say, oh, you know what, we don't want to waive inspections anymore. Because a lot of times it's like, well, that's literally why we chose your offer. So now we have a problem. So did you talk to your attorney beforehand? The third person I called really didn't have any understanding of what I was talking about, which again is a bit of a red flag. And I do not pick the winning offers on houses. That's not a thing. I never would do it. I have no interest in doing it, but I do have to communicate back to my sellers what I observed in the process. And if I say, hey, these people are waiving inspections, I asked the agent if he had talked to the attorney beforehand. And in my opinion, he didn't even really fully have an understanding of what waived inspections were. The other thing that's interesting with waived inspections these days is there's two types of waived inspections, in my opinion. There's number one, where they waive inspections and they're not doing an inspection, because that's truly waiving inspections. Like, if you're waiving inspections and you're going to stick to that contract no matter what happens, then you're not having an inspection. If you want to have a home inspection afterwards, then by all means. But that to me is a waived inspection, is that we're not inspecting it. We are going to stick to this contract no matter what. That is, to me, is a waived inspection. What we're getting a lot of is waiving inspection, or no, doing home inspection for informational purposes only. So on the surface, it sounds like they're going to do an inspection just so they know what's going on at the house, but they're not gonna ask for anything or anything like that. So my argument always back is like, that's fine, and we'll take that, we'll keep that in mind. However, if it's for informational purposes only, why don't you get that information after you close? Because if you're doing it for informational purposes and you find, and listen, this is fine, I'm just challenging you on what you're saying. If you do your inspection for informational purposes only, and there's an issue, let's call it like a moderate structural issue. Now what? Are you're just going to hang in with it? And if you are, then why did you do the inspection now? And if you find a somewhat serious structural issue, a moderate structural issue, are you going to try and back out? Because you probably can. It's kind of hard to hold people to that waived inspection thing. And that is why it's just a little bit less strong than someone who says, we're waiving inspections and we're not even going to do them. We're going to do them when we own the house. So again, some people say, hey, we waived inspections. What happened? I'm like, well, you didn't really waive inspections because you're still doing one. So like, this person's literally not doing inspections. Again, I don't recommend any of these things, but sometimes you do what you got to do. And I'm just talking in context of putting it in an offer. You can see that there's actually still quite a spectrum when people talk about waived inspections. And again, as a listing agent, we have to go back and ask these questions. So you have to be confident that your buyer's agent can explain these things properly, has explained them properly to you, and that your attorney is going to also challenge you on them, and that your agent is able to explain it properly to the listing agent. So there's a lot that goes into that. Presentation of the offer. So again, getting into things like, are all the attachments in there? Am I getting 8 misnamed attachments, or am I getting one concise attachment that's all organized? All the documents are merged into one document, super easy to scroll through. All the signatures are complete. All the contracts are filled out properly. Or is there tons of missing things? Is there information that's incorrect? Do I have to go back to you before I even send it over to my clients? Are you missing major things like seller's disclosures and lead-based paint disclosures and stuff like that? As I'm going through the offers, and I see one person that submitted me a beautiful email, bulleted with all the bullet points of the offer are all very clear to me. When I open up the email, I can see exactly what the offer is. Or am I digging through the document to try and figure out what the price is, let alone all the other terms? Are there conflicting messages? Might say one thing in the email, says a different thing in the contract. The way the contract is filled out, did you include my information in there? Because that's one thing that agents sometimes can do. And it's just a small indicator that they didn't put my information in. We can always add that later. But again, it's a little bit of a, when I get something that's airtight, I definitely communicate that back to my clients. Like, this person's, was airtight. And the reason I'm communicating it nowadays is because it's so few that actually are airtight. So, presentation's important. That's your first impression, right? So, in my opinion, we have a system that we kind of teach here in the office. A fellow agent of mine, really kind of started it. And what I recommend to agents is definitely take the class that he teaches and how to submit an offer, because it's basically the baseline of how I submit offers, and I've used it for 3.5 years to great success. But then take that baseline and then make it your own. Add your own embellishments. I think Chris would tell you, or any of the people I've submitted offers to recently, is video is a part of my offer process, and it's a very important part. Based on the feedback that we get back on those, and my acceptance rate of my offers, it's just another chance. If I didn't get a chance to meet you at the open house, here's a way to meet you. The videos literally look like what you're looking at now. It's the same. Obviously, I'm using the same setup. So, it's just an opportunity to say, hey, here's me. Here's how I work. Here's a little bit about my clients. Here's the summary of our offer. Please feel free to share this with your clients. Please do not feel obligated to do so. That goes a long way, because it's a very, it's a very specific thing. It looks super professional, and then all my supporting documentation is airtight. So, like, if you're in a situation where there's 12 offers, like, I'd say after like 8, they're all going to start to blend together, because there's only so many ways to slice it. Like, the price is pretty much everyone's going to pretty much universally agree like where the price should top out. So, like, the prices are only going to get so high. So then it becomes a matter of like, all right, well, what are the terms? This person's putting down 20%. This person's putting down 18%. All right, still no difference, right? So, like, what does it come down to? It comes down to how it was presented, and how the other side of the transaction, the buying agent, is giving the impression of professionalism, and that we're actually going to get this thing done. It's not easy to get a home sale over the finish line. It takes a lot of work. So, this is kind of your opportunity to do that. So presentation is super important. So ask your buyer's agent, how are you presenting our offers? If it's like, oh, I write a one sentence, well, a lot of people could say, I write a 1-sentence email. There's a misnamed attachment on the bottom of it. And, I wait to hear back from them. That's my presentation. Would you really want to work with that agent? Because there's a lot of people working with those agents nowadays that don't realize that that's how their offers are presented. So just ask your agent, how do you present our offers? And I cannot stress this enough. It's literally like 95% of offers are submitted that way. It's kind of crazy to me. I think it's actually sort of unfortunate for our industry that there isn't a higher bar set. Strategy of the offer. So again, kind of relating back to structure is like, do all the terms that you're promising make sense together? Like, don't go to 70 grand over asking, but only have 5% down without something else in there to kind of support that, because that's not a real enticing offer when there's one for 465 with 10% down, but they have that gift, or they've provided a proof of funds for potential to put down more cash if it doesn't appraise. Like, it's five grand less, but that's a way stronger offer. So strategy is super important. And then continuing on that is like the way it's presented is obviously part of the strategy. So if any of my clients ask me how our offer submitted, I can give them this whole talk. Here's what we do. Step 1, step 2, step 3. And, then it's a nice, neat package. I'm very proud to present it. And then lastly, not a small part of the equation, but is just relationships and professionalism. So, a good portion of, if you're here in Hunterdon County, or Warren County, or, to some degree Somerset, there's a good chance I already know the other agent. And I maintain very good relationships with the agents I work with, because I try to be a nice guy, and I try to be fair to work with and accommodating, and help people out when they need it. As you can imagine, I do a lot of deals with like first-time agents. And I'm like, that's no problem. Like, that's nothing to be ashamed of. We all have our first deal and let's work together. And, that courtesy was afforded to me when I did my first deal. I've told that story on this podcast as well, that I ended up, that agent ended up putting an offer in on one of my other listings years later. And she had the best offer. And actually she didn't. We accepted a different offer. She had the second best offer. The first offer fell apart, as they often do. And she was the next one up, and I was super happy. And I said, hey, remember me? And I told her the story about how she helped me out on my first offer. And we had a chuckle. And but I was happy to work with her again. And I was happy to tell my clients, yeah, I've actually worked with her. Let me tell you a story about when I put in my first, or I sold my first house ever, and she was the buying agent. And she was super easy to work with, and really kind, and she did a great job. So that goes a long way. Is if you get someone who's a little aggressive and seems unpredictable, and then you have someone that you've worked with a few times and is really easy to work with, and a good person, that does get communicated to the clients. Again, it's not my decision, but I will relay if someone is kind of a better chance of getting it over the finish line. I've had agents submarine deals on many occasions, only because they either made a terrible choice or they got too confrontational during attorney review, when they made everyone uncomfortable. And during attorney review, the seller can just be like, I'm done with this. I don't want to deal with this craziness. Agents that are not necessarily trained up on some of the things, like, if something goes wrong in an inspection, but it's, there's some things that go wrong in inspection. It's like, whatever, common example, like GFCI in kitchens. It's like every listing, like there's one GFCI that's not hooked up correct or whatever. If you are, there's situations where, like, you're doing a ton of repairs and you're like, we'll take, don't worry about the GFCIs. We'll take care of that, because you've already asked them for, they had something they weren't anticipating, something serious. Or, if you do have to ask them for it, it's like a $200 or $300 repair, like, if you're hiring someone to do it. So it's like not a huge deal, but like, a less experienced agent probably doesn't know all that. So, like, when you hear about those things, like, they might not react to it correctly. To me, that's like a non-issue, because, like, listen, if it gets fixed, great. If it doesn't get fixed, not a huge deal. If it's, for a reason, and there's finer nuanced points here, like, it probably should be fixed, but maybe there's a reason we're saying, we won't do it. It's not like I'm saying we roll over on every transaction. Obviously, we don't do that. There are just, it's generally apparent what should be done, is what I'm saying. And if you don't have any knowledge of that type of thing, it's very hard to pick out what should be done and what shouldn't be done. And so when you get into these confrontations, are they informed confrontations, or are you just being irrational because you just don't know any better? That's kind of always the question. So maintaining those relationships and just maintaining professionalism. I mean, I've had to tell agents that I don't know the answer to something. Let me go ask my broker real quick. That's fine. I mean, I learned that in the corporate world long ago, is like when we were doing management consulting or something, and a client comes up to you with a very specific question about a software situation or training or something. Sometimes the answer is, I don't know. Let me go find out. That's okay. It's way better than like digging your heels in and pretending that you do know. That's almost never the right answer. So, that comes up a lot. So the way you conduct yourself in those moments is a key part of this. And are you confident that your buyer's agent is going to do that correctly? And you can usually tell, by how that person conducts himself. So, that's pretty much it. I mean, and we talked mostly about the offer process, and a little bit more into the process of actually closing on the house. There are going to be, I tell agents this all the time, there are going to be probably 5 crossroads in every transaction. And for those of us who are like in this a lot and sell a lot of homes, like navigating those crossroads is a piece of cake. And then you get to one that's challenging, and you got to stop and pause and figure out, like, all right, is this salvageable? Are my, clients, and I mean salvageable for my clients. I don't mean for me. I mean for my clients. Like, is this something we should continue to like pursue because we can come to a good resolution here? Or have we hit a roadblock where this deal is dead now and in the best interest of my clients? Generally speaking, there's always a way to work it out. It just has to be that they have to be compensated for the issue at hand. But in any transaction, you're going to have about 5 of those. Some of them are super easy and like, don't bat an eyelash. You pick the right fork and you continue down the road. And then some you really have to stop and think about. But any one of those 5, if you make the wrong decision as an agent, you will kill the deal. And I don't think that that's hyperbole. I think that in every transaction, there are 5 crossroads, 5 forks in the road, and you got to choose the right one. And, I think all of us could probably tell stories of very hard situations where we had to very slowly and deliberately try to negotiate or come up with a resolution that works for everybody. And it's not easy. That's kind of the hard part. But that right there, that part of the process, to me, in my opinion, is where the value of your realtor is. It is not at the front end in finding the home. It is certainly in the middle where you're going to actually put in an offer and prepare an offer. And it's definitely in the 60 days it takes you to close that house, because there are going to be some things. There are going to be some considerations. There are going to be some things. I always tell people there's very few situations where there's a perfect home inspection. I would say almost never. So if you have an inspection, there's going to be things to be discussed and repairs to be talked about. Sellers can get a little crazy. Buyers can get a little crazy. So, you just have to be confident in that agent that you've selected, that they can navigate all of this. And it's really not easy. It's not meant to be easy. It's not an easy job. So there's so much education that goes into this. There's constant training and classes, and it's endless. The education aspect of this job is endless. You have to know a little bit about a lot of things. And on top of that, you just have to be a super professional. You have to be super available. You have to, constantly be learning. You have to be a strong negotiator when it's required. Are you confident your agent can do all those things? Because I can tell you for a fact that there are a lot of part-time agents out there that really don't know what they're doing. Now, listen, if you have a friend that's in real estate and they're just getting started and you really want to give them a shot, there's 2 things I recommend is, they can always offer to either refer it or split it. So like if someone comes to me, and this has definitely happened, I actually did this early in my career, is, let's say that another agent in this office, they have a friend who's finally looking to list their home, and they've never done a transaction before, and they come to me and say, "Hey, Craig, my friends want to list with me, but I fully acknowledge that I really don't really know what I'm doing at this point, and I certainly don't want to hurt my friends. We can come up with a split." There's 2 ways to do it. We can come up with a split where it would work. That's what I would recommend to the other agent, is like, split it with me. Like literally 50-50. I'll do everything with you. We'll go through the entire process. You get to observe free. Well, it's not free. You'll get the education of working with me and seeing how I list a home and some of the best practices and whatnot. Or you can just refer it to me if it's a situation where you're like just not ready. Like, because sometimes like they have full-time jobs and they like literally are not ready to sell a home, and say, "Hey, yeah, sure, refer it to me." You'll still get, a referral. You're recommending me, who I'm guessing, since you're asking me, you think I'm a good agent. I'll go help your friends out. You win, you get a little, money in the pocket. I'm sure in that case, you would learn some things along the way. Your friends get taken care of. I'm happy. Like everyone wins in that scenario. So if you have someone that you're trying to buy a house, and hey, your girlfriend or whatever has just gotten their real estate license, just say, "Hey, do you have a team behind you?" Because that's the key thing. Is when I first started, I had a team behind me. I had people that I was very confident I could go to at any time and ask questions. I maintained that humble approach of like, I don't know the answer right now, so let me go get it from my colleagues that kind of have my back on this. And that's key. If I think it's that humble aspect that some of the agents that we referenced in these conversations miss out on, is like, instead of going the humble route and saying, "You know what, I'm not quite sure, I'm pretty new to this, let me go ask my broker, let me go ask my colleague, let me go ask my manager," whatever it may be, instead of just being confrontational at that point and just kind of giving like a fake resistance to whatever is being asked. I think that's a very common early mistake that newer agents make. So Um, yeah, but I can tell you that, I took these 11 offers and, not a lot of real impressive things going on. So it's just a kind of a caution to the consumer. Be careful who you choose to work with. It shouldn't be considered a light decision. So don't just go, you go on Zillow and say, request a tour. It's a boardwalk game. It's the spinner at the boardwalk where you're going to land on a number and that's the agent you get. You don't get to choose when you say request a tour on Zillow. That's how that works. Those people pay to be in that position, and they're most likely paying to be in that position because they don't have other business. The line I've been using lately with people is like, would you like an agent who's available at the drop of a hat, or would you like an agent who is actually successful and can actually get you a house? Because you can't, those two things are mutually exclusive right now. If the agent is successful and is, able to get a house in this market, they're busy right now. They'll get to you. It might not just be like, hey, getting called at 8:30 at night. Hey, can you show me this house tomorrow at 9 a.m.? I can't because I'm booked, but I would love to show you that house at 3:30 in the afternoon. Like, it's a good thing. Like, it's just like contractors. Like, if you pick someone to paint your house, you don't necessarily want the guy that's like, sure, I'll be there tomorrow. You'd probably rather have the guy that say, yeah, I can come later this week and get you an estimate, and then we can kind of book you, and it might be a week and a half or 2 weeks. That guy's the better painter, most likely. So all things to consider when you're choosing a buying agent. Something I've talked about many times on here, but I just wanted to highlight it again based on my own listing. So hope that was helpful. Quite a few viewers today. I really appreciate that. And, as always, if you have any questions or anything, my contact info is right on the bottom here. And, you can message me on any of the platforms this airs on: YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, any of the Facebook groups. And I'll be happy to answer any questions, either in future podcasts or by, phone or whatever, if it's a specific question. But give me a call. I'll be happy to work with anyone that has the patience to sit through this thing. So, all right. So I hope you're all doing well. Stay healthy, stay warm. Still a little cold out there. And I will see you all soon. Take care.